Yeah, so this is one of my favorite books on happiness, and I'm going to tell everybody why. So first of all, there's a lot of happiness books out there, and I think this is quite possibly the most effective one for actually changing your behavior, because it kind of, the thing that's different about this one is it has an assessment in there. So tell us about that a little bit.
Well, sure. I mean, I have people track how happy they are, because that is, you have to first start by finding out, what your level of happiness is, so then you can track how it changes over time. And I think that really the key thing about this book that makes it unique is that everything that I say, everything I recommend, is based on science. It's all based on empirical research. It's not just someone's opinion. Someone sitting on the couch and spouting off what they think makes people happy.
And that's what I love about this book. It's all science. It's hard stuff. It's got these surveys in there. It's got these tests in there. And this stuff has been tested over and over again. Was it the Oxford Inventory of...
Well, I used various measures of happiness, including a scale that I developed. And also
really?
there's an Oxford Happiness Inventory as well.
Fantastic. And and so the structure of this book is that you got the first section, you got the middle section, and you got the end section. The first section kind of lays out what the whole how is all about.
The theory, yeah. The first section is about, what are the biggest determinants of happiness. And I talk about how partly it's genetic, partly it's our life circumstances. Some of us are just born, healthier and more attractive than others. But all those things actually don't affect our happiness as much as we think they will. And up to 40%, that's why there's a sort of a slice of the pie in the book.
Slice of pie.
The 40% is basically that part of happiness that is in our power to control. Sort of through how we think and how we behave. And that's a really optimistic message. I mean, 40% is not 100%. I mean, some of us really are born happier than others. But so the rest of the book is really about how do we harness that 40%? Sort of what are the strategies that we can use to become happier and to stay happier in a lasting way.
Right, so 40% is under our control. The remaining 60% is made of meringue. Just so you know. Okay. So, the thing that really makes those surveys effective is that this is not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing. You provide all the various modalities by which people can improve their happiness, and then you have that in the second section, right?
That's right. So one of the biggest themes of my research is what I call fit, and that is, and we all sometimes we'll pick up a self-help book, and we think, oh, I don't want to do that. That's too hokey, or that's not going to work for me. And the reason is that not every strategy is going to fit every person. I mean, some people are into meditation or counting their blessings, and others are not. Just because it doesn't fit you doesn't mean that you can't find a strategy that you will benefit from. So I have a diagnostic test that I developed that helps people identify the 2 or 3 or 4 happiness increasing activities that will benefit them the most. And then the idea is then you only read that part of the book that applies to what will benefit you.
Right, so, and there's 12 of them, right? So I actually went through I did the survey, I did all the tests, I kept with my 4 ones. So let's talk about those 4, because otherwise, that's a whole day. So my 4 were flow, religion and spirituality, relationships, and savoring. Let's start with savoring. I really like that one.
Great. Well, savoring is really about getting pleasure out of the present moment, positive experiences. And I think we all think that we know how to savor, so using your senses, like savoring by listening to music, or when you eat your pastry in the morning, to truly savor it, when you're spending time with your children, to really savor that time, to really sort of get the most out of it, to live in the present. Now, we can't live in the present all the time. I mean, we have to have goals and be in part future-oriented as well. But I think a lot of us are so busy. We have families and we have jobs that we kind of forget to savor. So I think that's a really important one, and it's really enjoyable.
Right. And being a fan of Eastern wisdom, Taoism in particular, so all this is about being fully present in the moment, and so much of Zen Buddhism and just all the meditative practices are about
being
that.
mindful, exactly.
Being mindful, indeed. Okay, so let's talk about flow. Flow is one of my favorite ones too.
Well, flow is very much related to this idea of kind of being in the moment, and so flow is a term that was coined by Mike Csikszentmihalyi, who's at Claremont, not far from where we are right now. And so flow is basically the sense that, or a state when you're so absorbed or engaged in what you're doing that you don't even notice time passing. You're not even conscious of yourself. You might be tired, or you want to go to the bathroom, or you're hungry, but you don't even notice it because you're so engaged. So the idea is that happier people have more flow experiences.
Right.
And it could be work, it could be talking to someone, it could be playing chess, it could be exercising. Sort of anything that you do, you can theoretically make into a kind of a more flow-like experience.
Yes. So, and in the book you talk about how people can pick what those flow experiences are for themselves and actually engage in them more fully.
That's right. Actually, I teach a class called The Psychology of Happiness, and one of the exercises that I have my students do is keep a sort of a diary for 5 or 7 days. And one thing they keep track of is what gives them flow. You know, sort of when are they so absorbed in something they don't notice the time passing. And people are often surprised to learn. Like, for example, a lot of people have flow in their work where they think they have more flow in their leisure, like watching TV, but actually that's not the case. So the idea is you identify the things in your life that give you flow, the people in your life that talking to them gives you that flow experience, and then sort of do that more.
Yeah, one of the fun things about the book is that there are all these examples that are really kind of paradoxical and surprising, because people say, oh, I hate work, I don't want to be at work, and yet they have a lot of those flow experiences at work, which is at a very deep unconscious level fulfilling them, they just don't know it.
That's right, and that's why you really need to kind of survey yourself, you know, experiment on yourself. Now, I'm not saying that every person, you know, has flow in their jobs. Some people don't, but you want to kind of do that self-experimentation.
A big part of the book was about relationships. So how is that, their entire book's written about this, of course, but give us an example of how nurturing our relationships can be a big key to increasing our happiness.
Sure. Well, relationships, I think no one will be surprised to find that relationships are one of the biggest keys to happiness. I'm often asked sort of what are the biggest keys, and relationships is one of them, sort of positive thinking is another, and following goals is a third, but relationships is a huge one. And so I have a chapter talking about how to enhance and nurture your relationships. And, you know, there are, as you said, lots of books written on that. One of my favorite is Gottman's book on 7 Principles for Making Marriage Work.
Really good book. John Gottman, he's the man.
Exactly. Great book. And so that's for anyone, whether you're married or not.
We hawk all good books, not just
no,
one.
Absolutely. And I often actually in my book mention lots of other books that I like. But anyway, he gives lots of advice about how to fight in the right way. So good couples fight a lot. They just sort of, but they respect each other.
Right.
And then, you know, just really kind of some of the most sort of obvious recommendations, like to show admiration for your partner, to show respect, to truly listen. And I have another section on doing acts of kindness for others, which is very much related to relationships, because usually do acts of kindness to someone, with someone else, to someone else. And I've done what are called happiness interventions, which are kind of like clinical trials, testing whether various strategies work, and one of them is go out and do acts of kindness. So this week, do 5 acts of kindness that you don't usually do. And then we track people, and people become happier with time when they do more acts of kindness, acts of generosity, acts of thoughtfulness towards others.
One interesting point was that doing 5 acts of kindness on Monday was better than doing 5 acts of kindness on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday.
Yeah, we did. We had one study that showed that, and it's very interesting. I think it was just so powerful and salient to do 5 acts of kindness all in one day. So like tomorrow, go out and do 5 acts of kindness. Whereas if you spread them across the week, I think we all do good things all the time, and we may not even notice that we're doing it. And so it's just sort of more salient to you when you do it all at once.
And so much of this book is about going about this kind of thing deliberately and not leaving happiness to chance. So many people think that, you're either born with it or you're not, which brings us to the 3 happiness myths. What would those be? How we dispel those?
Well, one of them is that you just said, you know, you either have it or you don't.
Right.
And the thing about it is that there's a kernel of truth in that, of course, because part of happiness is genetically determined. But again, it's not all of your happiness. Kind of like you can be born with brown eyes, but you can get green contact lenses. So you can change your happiness, although you'll never be able to change the genes. Maybe at some future time when we can fool around with genes, we could. And so that's one of the myths. Another myth is that happiness is something you need to kind of chase and pursue. And really what I say to that, I mean, that makes it sound like it's like some Shangri-La out there, that it's not really, you're not really chasing it. I mean, you're actively engaged in it, you know. And another myth is about sort of